Really the biggest part is just giving us ideas using the Moodle, some of the websites that have been given out there, some of the wiki pages and things like that. It's just kind of changed as far as the number of instructional strategies that I use. Trying to reach those kids that maybe a plain old piece of paper and a book isn't really their way of learning. That's not going to work for them. So it kind of, I think just the number of instructional strategies that I can use in the classroom has been my biggest change.
It's improved my instruction because I spent more time on the internet looking for activities that would benefit my students, and came up with some new ideas that way. And it's changed my instruction because kids are working collaboratively, but also independently on their own work. A lot of students can be working on different things at the same time, which is kind of a nice way to have the classroom running.
I think positives are biggest thing. It gives you so many more ideas how to teach your concept that you're trying to get across. You know, when we look at stuff, there's more than one way to skin a cat, and so all these tools on the internet and that is made your classroom kind of blossom. And the fact that the training you get is you can really dive into your subject and go 100 different ways, and students learn in 100 different ways. So that's a huge positive for me. Some of the negatives, you know, with technology, there's always stuff that's kind of going wrong. Just like you know, when you're in the classroom and computers stop working, you know, you got all the negative. I've learned you always got to have a backup, and so that's one of my negatives.
Throwing out technology and say, here, use them, would be pretty much impossible for most adults, myself included. But having a class Wednesdays, not only, you know, here's the stuff, use them, but there's support and people to talk to. I can ask you, Mr. Wittenauer, when I have a question. That's been great. As far as the negatives, it's not a negative with the program itself, but some days I learn about things that I wouldn't necessarily use. But my colleagues will, so it's nothing that we could change program-wise, it's just individual users, which kind of brings out another positive, because just because I learn about it doesn't mean, you know, I have to use it in my classroom. I can try it out, there's someone to bounce questions off of that I may have, and then if I choose to use it, it's up to me, and if not, then I don't need to, which is cool also.
I think the biggest thing is the kids love it. That's probably the biggest positive. You can go into a classroom where the kids are totally engaged in the technology use, into a website or into a Moodle, like I said. Probably the biggest negative would be technology is a tool just like anything else, and it can break down, and it can be, you still have to be able to adapt. Just like if the copier doesn't work and you can't make that worksheet, computer doesn't turn on or the website doesn't come up, you just kind of have to adapt and roll with it. So I think it's for a lot of people it seems overwhelming, but it's just another tool they have to use. So.
Lots of positives. Students going above and beyond where they would ever go before, really diving into the subject. You know, a lot of it's more individualized. Students can really pick their path a lot easier than when you're standing up and we're all reading out of a book and doing a worksheet. They actually get to, you know, your projects that you do with technology. They can go as far or as little as they want. So that's really individualized, you know, learning in my classroom. Is some students just go on projects, they just go crazy, and that's very cool. One of the negatives that can happen, you know, is students can get overwhelmed. They're get in there, and if they're a little behind, they can kind of get bogged down in technology, just like a lot of us, you know, as teachers get bogged down in all that stuff coming in. Students can get that way also. One negative I've kind of noticed is the more you do on computers, the more kids expect to do on computers. So it's really tough to go back to, hey, we need to read this and do a worksheet. They want the interactive type stuff. They want If it's not fun and exciting, they let you know immediately that this is boring, and so that's one negative that I have noticed.
Okay.
I think they've impacted students because they're interested in working on the computers, and so there's this just kind of an inherent interest, no matter what the content is. If it's on the computer, it seems more interesting to the kids, so I think they're getting more out of it.
Okay.
Well, everything is interactive these days in their lives. You know, they go home and they play video games, and they're always on the computer, and everything is interactive. And they're way ahead of most teachers that haven't had the use of technology. So now when I get to use technology, you know, get my laptop out, you know, slap some up on the projector, you know, go to a website, pull something off for them to see. You know, they love it because they're very familiar with that. They tune in more. It's not just one-dimensional, you know, with a textbook. What I love about it is in those times where I can't find someone to help me, you know, in technology, I ask a kid, and they get up and they do it for me, and that makes them feel great. And you know, you have 10 kids throwing out ideas of how I could get to a certain part or point in this technology. If I don't know it, I ask them, and it's them teaching me, and they dig that. So that's been a great part of it as well.
Yes, because we're learning it together at the same time, and I think anytime teachers are learning something new together, then they spend time talking about it and asking each other what worked and what didn't work, and I think that's been helpful.
Yeah, I think for sure, because we're spending that Wednesday together as a group, you know, around technology, and then of course the discussions that happen during that time or after that time, you know, not necessarily with instruction, but they go to kids that we're having problems with, or they're going to ways that, you know, how can we reach this group of kid or this kid specifically, and it may not be different collaboration, but it's another time to collaborate, so it's increased collaboration in that regard. And kind of back to what I said before about being a negative, if there's something I don't necessarily use, and I try it in class or try it, you know, with you, Mr. Whitnow, and it doesn't work with me, but then a month later, a teacher says, hey, remember when Mr. Whitnow showed this? I've been using it since. You really should try it again. You know, and I have gone back on things that I didn't think I would use, and now since my colleagues are using them, they show me how to relate them to a specific part of my instruction, and I did see, you know, value in that or feel comfortable doing it, and then I start using it. So I've really seen a collaboration as far as in the teachers, and not so much all 8th grade teachers. Technology has made me seek out those 6th grade teachers that I know have had this stuff for 3 years already, and they've helped me understand things in between times, waiting for Wednesday afternoon and my technology time. So I can, if you're not around, I can seek out those teachers that have already had that instruction, that have been using it for a few years. I normally wouldn't talk to those teachers much, sadly. It's sad to say, but